Hey everyone, welcome to another American Gods Chat with M. I'm Emily S. Whitten. I am your host of this amazing chat. I hope that you will join me either live or, stop by later and then catch me on Twitter and let me know what you think of all the talk and the thoughts and everything to do with American Gods. So just a couple of reminders. As I said, I'm Emily S. Whitten, and I am at the Emily ESSE on Twitter, Instagram, everywhere. So you can feel free to follow me on there. And of course, you should be following Movers and Shakers Unlimited on Twitter as well. It's Move N Shake UNLTD Unlimited, but abbreviated. So please follow both of us, and as well, it would mean a lot to us if you would like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, because that would mean that you really like us. You like us. You really like us. Sorry, dramatic reference. Also, as a reminder, because I'm really excited about the fact that it is coming out in like a couple of months now, The Underfoot Book 2, of which I am the co-creator and co-author, is available for pre-order. It comes out April 20th, and it's available from your local comic shops if you let them know that you want it. So please support your indie and local shops and stores. And if you can't get to one of those, or you don't have one locally, you can get it on Amazon, at Target, Barnes & Noble, etc. So just go on to the websites and search for The Underfoot, my last name, it'll come up, or The Underfoot, Into the Sun, or anything like that. You can always hit me up on Twitter if you can't find it, and I will help you out. So anyway, also at 8 o'clock Eastern time tonight, I will be watching the new episode 7, Fire and Ice. And you can join me for a live tweet at #AGChatWEMMNSU. There it is right there. Our wonderful producer, Brandon, is so quick with all of this stuff. So there you go. So my recommendation for the week, if you've been following, you know that I've been recommending some of the things that are keeping me happy at this time, especially during the time of pandemic and self-isolation, when we have to turn even more to our wonderful entertainment to buoy our spirits up and keep us happy. WandaVision. WandaVision is the new MCU TV show, the newest one, and it's on Disney Plus, and it's almost done now. So it's on episode 7 aired, and we have one more episode left, episode 8, and it is a really interesting show. I know I watched the first episode. I'll try not to spoil anything big here, so don't worry. I'm not going to mess up all your watching if you haven't seen it yet. But I watched the first episode and I was like, well, it's not super it's not one of those shows that immediately pulls you in 110% in the sense that you're like, oh, I know this thing over here and that thing over there. But it is one of those shows where I see that they have a vision, for what they're doing, and they have a plan, and they are building something. And it was actually, in some ways, it's more enthralling than something that just is like action shot at the beginning, because they're pulling you into their longer story. You could tell it was going to be a build. And basically, it's set after Avengers Endgame. It involves Wanda Maximoff and Vision, and they basically are living together as a married couple in Westview, New Jersey, starting out in the 1950s. So what's happening there? And then things start to get weird, and it's funny, but also serious. It's got action, it's got darkness, it's got an exploration of the effects of trauma, it's an exploration of superpowers, it's got Easter eggs, it's got clever bits of things that kind of circle back later in the best ways. And it's also, which brings me joy, got people trying to figure out what part of New Jersey it's in, which, as a person who grew up in New Jersey, I really enjoy the fact that they're like, we see the 732 area code, we see this zip code, where are we? And I grew up in Bergen County, is it over there? Westview, is it near Eastview? So that's my own personal little kick that I get out of it. But it's a really interesting show. If you haven't seen it yet, I'm sure you can catch up on it if you've got Disney Plus, and I would definitely give it a watch. So that's my recommendation. I'm only doing one today because, cool news, I won a prize from Stars 2 weeks ago from the American Gods Twitter account. they asked us, as we will remember if we've been watching the show, watching my recaps, any of that. Shadow Moon, our main protagonist, is making a bit of a connection with Marguerite, who lives in Lakeside, and she's his landlady. And also they kind of got off on the wrong foot and then kind of made nice and are sort of becoming friends, more. And Shadow's clearly a bit interested. Marguerite's clearly a bit interested. So they asked, what would be their shipmate name, their portmanteau, their little, you put two names together and what do you got? And because Shadow's last name is Moon, I suggested Marguerite, which is like not super easy to say or anything, but it amused me. And they said, hey, you won a prize. So I got this crazy bucket. It's so big, you can't even see the whole thing on screen. And on the top, it's got little handles there. It's like a fishing bucket for your lake fishing. I assume you're ice fishing, as you would do at Lakeside. And it says, welcome to Lakeside. It's real hard to see because, it's shiny. But it says, welcome to Lakeside and American Gods on it. And it is a substantial metal bucket. So let us see what the heck is inside this thing. It was really fun. I got it yesterday. I was feeling a little under the weather and I was like, oh, now I have something to do tomorrow. This is so exciting. All right, let's see if I can show you any of this without spilling the whole thing out. So this is what it looks like inside. And we're going to see what all of this stuff is. We've got it's almost like a little postcard. It says, welcome to Lakeside. If you're rich, you live in Monte Carlo. If you're famous, you live in California. But if you're lucky, you live here. Greetings from Lakeside, Wisconsin, the Heartland's best little hideout. We want you to feel right at home. So pour yourself a warm cup of cocoa. Okay, I'm excited. I love hot chocolate. And catch up on the latest episode of American Gods on Stars. There's your little postcard kind of thing you've got going on there. And then we've got, oh no, oh, this is great. This is a bumper sticker that says, Future Lakeside Clunker. So my car is from 2002. So is that right? It's really old. So I am afraid of the idea of putting this on my car because then there we go. We can kind of see it there a little bit there. Future Lakeside Clunker. I don't know. I'll post some pictures of this on Instagram and Twitter so that you can see it better than this video. But I might put it on my car, but what if, in fact, it becomes the next Lakeside Clunker after I do that? I'm a little afraid. Oh, but this is great. Okay, so welcome to Lakeside Hat. Now, if you follow Neil Gaiman on Twitter, Instagram, etc., you will know that he has this hat because I saw a hilarious picture of him in this. It's a lovely hat, but it's also a little bit ridiculous. It's got a bobble thing on top. And so I saw this great picture of him a few weeks ago. He looked, wonderful. He's Neil. He also looked hilarious, let's be honest. And so now I can look like Neil Gaiman in this amazing Welcome to Lakeside hat that says American Gods Stars on the back and has a really soft little bobble on top. We will try it on, hopefully for a moment. Oh, okay. All right. Yep. New fashion statement for me. Whoop, there we go. New fashion statement. This will be me, American Gods Lakeside Beauty right here. So, you know what? It is really warm and it's still pretty cool here where I am. The snow's still melting and may come again. So, all right. I'm here for this hat. This is the right time of season for this bucket. Let's see. Oh, we've got here we are. A welcome to Lakeside tin. Oh, this is the hot chocolate. This is the hot chocolate. It has hot chocolate mix, marshmallows, and crushed peppermint. Oh my gosh, I'm so sold. I'm so sold. I'm totally gonna drink this tonight after this live show. This is excellent. All right, we gotta see it. All right, we got marshmallows. Yay, marshmallows. And oh, I can smell it. It smells so good. And the crushed peppermint and some hot chocolate. All right, we're making hot chocolate tonight. We got some Baileys. Maybe we'll throw some of that in there too. Make it extra exciting. Oh no, creme de menthe. That's what it would be because it's got peppermint, of course. All right, let's see. Oh, I think I know what this is. Oh, this is exciting, guys. Because if you don't know what to put your hot chocolate in, they sent a mug that says Lakeside and home of America's best pasty. Oh, that's so fun. That is so fun. Oh gosh. The light is a little bit, it's hard to see, but look at that. I'm going to be enjoying this hot chocolate so much. I'm afraid I'm going to break it. I better put it over here. All right. Let's see what else we got here. Oh, this is perfect. I've got a welcome to Lakeside key ring, which I just got a key for something that I don't have a key ring for. So thanks, stars. Thanks, American Gods. I'm going to use all of this stuff immediately. And let's see. I think, this is big. All right. I think that might be the last thing in there, but this is awesome because it's a freaking giant, it feels like wool. It's like really, it's not one of those fleece soft, it's one of those like hardy soft ones. I got a welcome to Lakeside blanket that says American Gods on there's like a strap. Okay, they want me to go ice fishing is what I'm getting here because there's a bucket and this blanket and this hat and this hot chocolate. And we're all going to go or maybe they just want me to sit and watch to see when the clunker falls through and to bet on it like everyone else. Maybe that's what they want. They didn't send any fish hooks. So I guess it's just to go and sit and wait and see when that car is going to fall through the ice. And hopefully I'll win the bet. But we all know I'm not going to because Shadow will win the bet because he's magical. So yeah, this is freaking awesome. And I love it. And I'm going to use every single one of these things. And I am sure that I don't technically need another blanket, but that's only because I love them so much that I have like a million fuzzy, fluffy, warm blankets. So this will go to the top of the collection. Thank you, American Gods, Twitter, and stars. You guys are awesome and fun to interact with when I do the live tweeting on at 8 o'clock on the Sunday nights. The American Gods Twitter is very active and they post like fun GIFs and stuff like that. And they posted this contest and that's how I won this was they just said, post and you'll win a prize. And about, a bunch of people replied and I won. So if you want to win a prize, follow the American Gods US Twitter account and follow them during the live tweet and maybe they'll do some more contests. I don't know. I have no insider information on that one, but I wouldn't be surprised if they do something else. So let's see what else we got today. I'm so excited. I'm like, am I supposed to like talk about the show now? Oh yeah, okay. Yep, we're gonna do that. So I got a cool prize and then we're gonna talk about the other cool prize that we get every Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern, which is Ricky Whittle, otherwise known as Shadow Moon, does Moon Mondays, where he goes on Instagram Live and he interviews one of the other people on the show. Well, it's an interview, but it's very informal. So it's like a chat. And so this past week, and I've been watching them, I kind of take my lunch break and watch the Instagram Live. And this last week was Danny Trejo, who we saw last week as Mr. World. And that was really interesting. We didn't get him for too long, so Ricky stayed around after. He was very busy, so Ricky stayed around afterwards and did some more Q&A and stuff like that. But Danny Trejo was really fun to listen to. They were talking a little bit about his interesting past. He was in prison, kind of in and out in his younger years, and then became an actor, and now has used that for he's started some different companies. He has a restaurant, but he's also used it for activism. He uses it, his experience, to go and talk to kids in schools and inspire them to make something of their lives. And he's a really interesting guy. I think he said he was in his 70s now, and I was like, wow, I didn't even realize that. That's crazy. Because it just seems like, wait. He's 76 years old. Good on you, Danny Trejo, because I would never have guessed. So I feel like he always looks like Danny, But he's really cool as Mr. World, one of the several Mr. Worlds. And I really enjoyed hearing the brief moments that we got with him. So that was really fun. And I think you can still watch them on like Ricky. They may be archived on his Instagram feed, but if not, tune in at 1 p.m. Eastern on Mondays because that's when you get them. So the next one coming up is Yetide, and that's Yetide Badaki, who plays Bilquis, and I adore Yetide. She is an amazing actress doing an amazing job as Bilquis, and she's also just a real fun person. She is a warm light in this world and a real geek. So I identify with that aspect of her personality. So you should definitely tune in for that one coming up tomorrow at 1 p.m. All right, let's see what else we've got. That's right, the recap. All right, so episode 6, we're going to try something different this week. American Gods is really intricate, so it weaves all the stories in, and that's true of both the book and the show. And so it can be a little confusing jumping around. So I'm going to talk instead about the 3 main storylines that we really got in episode 6. So the first one that we're going to start out with is the interesting historical love triangle between Mr. Wednesday, Tur, and Demeter. So now, if you'll recall, the godly love triangle. We've seen Demeter. She's in this retreat where she's been kind of literally retreated from the world and kind of resting and not interested in coming out to join Mr. Wednesday's war. And he, as obviously Odin also, has been, courting her within the retreat. He got himself thrown in there by running around naked in the streets, and in an imitation of one of the things that she did to get thrown in there, and or placed gently in there. I don't think anyone would throw Demeter. Blythe Danner is lovely, and no one should throw her around. But Demeter was in there. Wednesday got in there to try and get her on board with his schemes, and then Tyr. We saw him as a dentist, so he's another of the Norse characters, the Norse gods, but we saw him as a dentist, and Odin had gone to visit him and had seen a card from Demeter on his desk and had stolen it and then gone off on this quest to find Demeter. So we get the cold open is the Revolutionary War, and it's winter, and Odin and Tyr are fighting. And they're in the war, they're soldiers in the war, and then the war is over, and Tyr he has some, I don't know if he has history or he's recently met, but he's in love with Demeter, and Odin goes with him to court Demeter. I guess Tyr is a little shy on his own, and in the meantime, Odin falls in love on first sight with Demeter and courts her and ends up marrying her. So the story is both the present where they are now and this past that is why everything's kind of a mess with her and why she doesn't trust him and doesn't want to be a part of anything to do with him. So let's talk about this love triangle. All right. Now, they got married back in the day. They were happy for a little while, and then they had a child, and then the child passed away. And then Odin ran away. And then Tyr came along and comforted her. And so that's the backstory that was going on at the time. So now Odin is in the retreat, and he's trying to both apologize to her and woo her to his cause. And we're not sure if he is as genuine in his apology as the wooing to the cause, but he actually does seem like it in this case. And as Cordelia had said in the previous episode, I think it was, one or two episodes ago, she said to Shadow that when Odin, Mr. Wednesday, was going to court Demeter, he was actually kind of like nervous and like, did you do this? Did you check that? Is everything ready? Do you have the flowers, the suit, the thing, the candy? Is everything ready to go? Now, he might have just been trying to, win his cause, but he may genuinely have those feelings for Demeter. And my interpretation based on the show would be that he does, because it really leads through in certain bits of it as we go along. Now, I also think that even a Wednesday who has those genuine feelings, has the feelings that we're going to talk about in a second, also is always running his angle. Like, that's part of him, and that's who he is. So basically, we get several different bits throughout the episode, and I'm just going to go through them all at once so that we're not as confused as when I jump around sometimes to everything as it happens. And one part that I loved is that Odin is writing the story of the history. How usually we have Mr. Ibis writing the story, and instead we've got Odin writing, and he's writing in like a Sharpie or a marker, so it's like just big, on the page. It looks really goofy, but actually there's a reason for it. So he's writing this story. And then he's hanging out with Demeter, and somebody said, one of the orderlies comes and is like, oh, are you not hungry? You missed dinner. Do you want a snack? And then the next thing you see, he's got this giant, like, Dagwood style sandwich for his snack. And somebody on Twitter was like, I want to be in that retreat. And I agree, because it's like this nice old wood, like, you know, fancy building with fresh flowers everywhere and giant sandwiches for their snacks. And I'm like, how do you get in there? I guess you have to have a lot of money. Surprise. So anyway, he's kind of, you know, he's hanging out with Demeter, and they exchange some quips about the fact that they have this bet going on where, you know, he can't last a week in there, but if he lasts a week in there, then he gets like one night of her time. And so they have this bet. They're getting up to the last night, and she's like, oh, you know, I'm not worried, you know. So then it turns out she's tried to set him up by putting stolen pills in his room. And so like all the, you know, medication, the orderly discovers it, is told about it by Demeter or whatever, finds it, dumps it out on the bed. And then during that encounter, one of the other staff members comes in, and it's very clear that the staff member and the orderly and the other staff member have like a love interest going on, but they're both really shy and awkward. And Odin's like, oh, I'll help you woo her. Okay. And then he also says, he's like, I don't need any medication, you know, and he walks by and there's this kind of rainbowy ripple effect. Like he has the magic. He doesn't need that. So basically he's going to be Cyrano for this guy. And during this, you know, trying to woo her, he's also working on what we discover is a shadow play. And this is actually one of the most beautiful parts of the whole story in this episode. But before we get to the actual shadow play, we see Demeter gardening in like a greenhouse, and, you know, Wednesday comes in to talk to her, and she tries to frame him for breaking pots. And then, you know, he's like, oh, well, I was just trying to find some flowers to help you woo your, you know, love interest, and I accidentally knocked something over because I'm clumsy. And so he can always talk his way out of it. But it is kind of cute. Like, we see why his charm works, because Ian McShane is charming and his character is charming, and we get it. So at that point, they're putting on, they're gonna so he wins the bet. He lasts for a week, and so he gets this evening with Demeter, and what he does with it is he has her go to a shadow play. Haha, a shadow play. Who's it named after? We wonder. The orderly is like, I feel like that's kind of self-referential, and he's like, you think? So the whole of the, whoever else is in this retreat, they all, you know, have, it's like an audience, they all sit down, and they do literally a shadow play, which is where they have the screen that's lit from behind, and, you know, the little figures move. And we've seen other examples of this, like in Harry Potter with the Deathly Hallows story, which was beautifully done. And there's an excellent music video that I am blanking on at the moment. I will put it on Twitter, because I love this music video that goes with a really lovely song as well. And it's all done in this shadow play kind of mode style. So he's doing this shadow play. He's been preparing it with the orderly. His name is Hank, I just recalled. And he's, you know, he's ready to do it, and they all sit down, and Demeter is there as well. And the play is about, oh, and what's great is when Hank is helping him prepare it, he's like, you know, I get that you're the hero, Terror, and you know, the woman, I forget what somebody Wells is her fake name in the retreat, Demeter is the goddess, but boy, this Odin guy, he seems like a real, you know, like he's like, and Odin's like, everybody's a critic, you know. It's just a great moment, and there's some really fun script writing in here, and or based on the original material, depending on what part of the script we're talking about. So the shadow, you know, the shadow play talks about how, you know, Odin was a boaster, and Terror was in love with this goddess that he'd fallen for, but then Odin fell for her, and so then they ended up together, and they got married, and Terror was like the good friend who, you know, was like, okay, I will be happy for you. And but then when their child passed away, Odin was a coward, and he ran away, and Terror stood by Demeter in her grief. And so then we see that in the audience, Terror is actually behind her, and she had asked him to come there as her support, basically, is what we find out. And so everybody's moved by this. It is a moving shadow play, and in fact, of course, Demeter is also moved by it, and, you know, how could she not be, because it's her story too. And then she's in her room, and Shadow's kind of, I'm sorry, not Shadow, Odin is kind of talking to her through the door, and he's apologizing for leaving and saying that he felt shame for hiding and running away, and that it was because, you know, grief was an enemy that he didn't know. And so that's actually a really beautiful part that does feel genuine. He's trying to get Demeter to join the world, rejoin the world, and, you know, come with him when she gets released. As he's put in motion, she's going to get release papers. And, you know, she says, oh, well, you're right. Tomorrow I'll leave. But, you know, he takes it a step too far because he's Odin. So he's like, all right, so we'll shed a tear together and then we'll go and lead the old gods to victory. And she's like, oh, there's the Odin I knew, although she calls him the Alfanir, Allfather. And so, you know, that's where that goes. And the end of that part of the story, which is one of our 3 threads, I know this is going a little long, but it's because of all this cool stuff I got from American Gods and Stars. The end of that story is actually one of the most beautiful parts of the whole thing. Wednesday is waiting for her. They're about to leave. He's changed his style again. He's in very, you know, dapper, like tailored clothes, black, shiny shoes, like very much the gentleman. And he's inside looking out the window. Cordelia says she saw Demeter outside, and he looks out, and Demeter walks into the garden, and the snow is melting away in her path. And then she like glows and turns into like swirling light, and it's beautiful. You know, Blythe Danner is gorgeous, and then she just glows and whisks away in the swirl, and everything looks very bright. And then you get the backdrop of that against the inside of this dark retreat, and Wednesday sitting in the window, almost like the shadow play style, and he looks just broken. And, you know, it's a really moving moment. Whether it's all a con or not, it seems like some of it isn't. So that's one of the main storylines. That's really a substantial part of what we've got. The second part of things is the Lakeside Love. So you know, we're the main people we're going to see every week is something to do with Odin's story usually, and something to do with Shadow's story, and then we get some other storylines as well. So this is Shadow's story of this week, and essentially Laura and Shadow, you know, Laura showed up in Lakeside and is like, hey, it's your dead wife who's not dead anymore. I'm alive for real again. How's it going? And so, you know, she and Shadow are having a talk, and Laura wants to kill Odin. He wants to kill Wednesday / Odin because, you know, Odin killed Mad Sweeney and also set her up to be killed by Mad Sweeney, and it's all his fault. It's all his fault, and she's really mad, and her life's been manipulated. She wants to kill him. And Shadow won't tell her where Wednesday is, and she's getting really mad about this. She's, why won't you tell me? And Shadow's like, he's my father. And it's like, oh, well, I didn't see that one coming. So, you know, what can you really say to that? If Wednesday is Shadow's father, it would probably take a whole lot of convincing. If he's saying he doesn't want to tell where Wednesday is, then, you know, he's probably not going to change his mind in 5 minutes if it's like that complicated. So Laura decides to, you know, go off on her own, and they're saying goodbye in the hallway, and they like hug, and then right then Marguerite walks in, and it's like so much awkwardness because, you know, Marguerite and Shadow kind of feel a little spark there, and he's like, oh, this is my late wife, and then she corrects it as like ex-wife, and it's like, oh right, she's alive again, right, of course. And it's super, the acting here is really good because it's just so perfect, the little quipping back and forth and everything. And Shadow's like, you know, and Laura's like, we were married, and he's like, very briefly, a long time ago, and it's like, oh, ouch, a long time ago. It hasn't been that long, Shadow. And Laura's kind of like, he's nice, but he gets tongue-tied when he's in love, and then she takes off. So I mean, does Laura still have feelings for him beyond, like, it really seems like they're exes, whereas when she was dead, her goal was to find Shadow, and then she got involved with Sweeney, they had their thing, and now she really doesn't seem to be in love mode with Shadow anymore. She doesn't, you know, too much has happened there, and it's done, and she's looking at a different goal now, whether she admits it or not. And so she goes back to, we always see the Motel America, so she goes back to Motel America, and Salim is there, and the TV's been talking to him, so apparently media is trying to contact Salim, maybe Laura as well. And, they say that they have to, figure out what to do next. And they see that there's this vigil outside of Cleveland. Another Ohio location for, I think it was the bar that blew up, the Valhalla bar that blew up. I could have misunderstood that, but that's what I think it was. And so they decide, because they don't really, know what else to do, they decide to go there. So they travel there, and it turns out that the bar is, the vigil, is canceled, and they turn around and Mr. World is there and is trying to recruit them to work with him. And so that's kind of, what's going on. He says they have a common enemy, and that's where we leave it. So it's not a lot of, Laura and Shadow, but we get a little bit of Laura and Shadow and a little bit of Celine. But we're not done with Lakeside yet. But because before the end of the episode where Mr. World is trying to recruit Laura or Laura and Salim, he's really interested in Laura, I would assume. But Salim's going along for the ride. He wants to find the gin still, I guess. He seems like he does. But before all that is done with, we also have some more drama in Lakeside. So obviously there's the awkwardness of Marguerite meeting his late/ex-wife. And then a little bit later, we get another brief glimpse of the search for Allison. She is still missing. Chad is really feeling the pressure from the town, because the town it has, since the 80s, 97% fewer crimes. And that's like, of course, by this point, you should maybe suspect there's a reason for that. Like, it's just that much safer than everywhere else. I mean, I'm sure Chad's doing a good job. But I don't know. So, the whole of Lakeside is kind of riled up. Hinzelman tries to calm everyone down. Chad is feeling all the pressure. And, in the meantime, not in the meantime, but right after that, Shadow decides to paint his walls. And this is one of the funniest scenes in the whole series so far, because he is like rocking out to some live music, like he's dancing. It's, what is it? Poison. What's the name of the song? I'm blanking on the name of the song, but it's great. And he's like shirtless, painting the wall, dancing. He looks like a big old goofball, which is probably the closest to Ricky Whittle that we've seen in the Shadow character, because from the Moon Mondays and my brief interactions with Ricky, he's just a fun guy. And so, Ricky as Shadow is dancing around, and he's having a good old time, and Marguerite like surprises him in the midst of this, and he's like, oh, and it's hilarious. This is a scene you do not want to miss. So, they have this kind of awkward bit right there, and then he asks her to dinner, and she's like, why don't you come to dinner with me? I'm gonna cook, and you can meet my sister. And he's like, cool, that sounds good. And then as he's painting, he sees like cherry blossoms on a tree, like kind of away in the breeze, which transitions into a scene with Mr. World, which we'll go back to. But so in Lakeside, she invites him to dinner. Oh, you can meet my sister. So he brings some wine. He's ready for dinner. And it turns out that, her sister is Sam Blackcrow, who will remember, hopefully, from previous episodes, gave Shadow a ride in her very dusty car that said "Watch Me" or whatever on it. And, he had no idea that they were related. It turns out they're half-sisters. So they chat a little bit, and she's like, oh, your name is Mike, huh? Because, of course, that wasn't his name when they were introduced before. And he says, my intentions are honorable. And they have a little brief conversation about Marguerite's oldest son, Sandy, who is missing. They don't know where he is. They hope he's in Florida with his dad, but Sam doesn't believe that's true, because they would have heard. And she takes off. He tells her goodbye. And at that moment, he sees those fireflies or ashes, I think, whatever it is that he saw at the funeral home a couple of episodes ago, and they're kind of swirling in the air, and he's looking around. And then he sees someone running from the window of like a roof window and jumping off a roof and running away. And he chases after them. And it turns out that it's, I think, Derek. I think he works at Mabel's, maybe. I forget what character he is in Lakeside, but he's a local, and he's the panty thief. He's the guy who's been stealing, we assume he's the guy who's been stealing the laundry from the laundromat. So that's where that thread leaves off, is with this kind of like continuing getting to know Marguerite. Oh, your sister is someone I've met before and knows me as someone else, and now here's the local crime going on. So there's a whole bunch of stuff, and we still don't know where Allison is. So that continues. That's been several episodes already where we don't know what's going on. And that leads us to the third thread of this whole thing. We are going to visit Technical Boy and Mr. World. The godly glitches are still going on. Technical Boy is a mess. He's been a mess since Bilquis did something to him that he's not sure what it is. And she had touched him in a previous episode, thrown him back into this wartime experience. And ever since then, he's been glitching. And he doesn't understand what's happening. So he had gone to this giant warehouse with the automaton that was one of his earliest earlier at least, I assume, technological inventions. And he had kind of gotten into his safe space under the automaton where he could control it, and he kind of, hunkered down in there. And so now he comes out and he goes to this like old looking computer terminal, very old school, and he tries to get an analysis of what the heck is wrong with him. And it goes through and it asks him about his emotions. And it's like, he's saying, I'm having these sensations I can't describe. And they're like, well, what is that? What emotions are you feeling? He's like, no, sensations when I'm, being attacked. And, and the computer keeps asking about emotions. He keeps denying that he has emotions. It seems clear that he's having emotions, but who knows? And then it asks him if he wants a full analysis to insert artifact 1. And Technical Boy has no idea what artifact 1 is that will do an analysis on him. So he is like, what the heck is that? So he doesn't know. And, so he has to find out. In the meantime, Mr. World is now Danny Trejo. He's turned from Crispin Glover back into Danny Trejo, or now into Danny Trejo. This is the first time we see Danny. And I enjoy the very many different aspects of Mr. World and Ms. World that we're seeing here, and it's a lot of fun to see how they're playing with that. And Mr. World is very upset that Tech Boy has ghosted him, and he's talking to his minions that he had created and saying like, this is I built you for a reason. You're supposed to be helping me with this. And he's about to get real, real mad. And Tech Boy then just kind of saunters in, is like, hey y'all, what's good? That's the actual line, and it's just, I love Bruce Langley. He's so much fun as Technical Boy. It's one of my favorite characters. And of course, it wasn't in the original book one of my favorite characters. So the actors and actresses really bring a lot to these roles. So he's in there. He comes in. He's acting very cocky. But then, like, once the others leave, he and World have a conversation. And it's clear that, like, Tech Boy is feeling neglected. He's like, you tried to replace me with new media. I'm not going to repeat the line if you're watching American Gods, there's a lot of cursing in there, but it's a great description of the kind of faceless characters that Mr. World has around the table. And Tech Boy's like kind of feeling like, oh, how did you even notice I was gone and whatever. And Mr. World, and he's still glitching, and Mr. World's like, what's wrong with you? And he's like, I don't know. I need artifact 1. What the heck is that? And Mr. World is like, all my children that I created, you're the one I care for the most. And it could be true, but it seems like super, super manipulation. So, he's like, look, our plan, Shard, is essential. We need this. You're not alone. We'll fix this together. Da, da, da. And I'm like, I don't trust this guy as far as I can throw him. And Danny Trejo is a big guy, so I can't throw him far at all. I can maybe like push him an inch. I don't know. We'll see. I don't trust him at all. So, he's like, don't worry. We'll find it. And then Tech Boy leaves. Mr. World goes down to this kind of secure area, and he's talking to someone on the phone, and he says, it's here. I got it. And there's this like literal shard, like a stone thing that's sitting in this safe silo 2 miles underground that Mr. World is in. So is that the artifact? I assume so at the moment. I'm not sure, but it's entirely possible that it could be. So that's basically, I think, where we leave Tech Boy and Mr. World. And then the only other time we see Mr. World is when he's recruiting Laura and Salim at the very end of the episode. That is what's been going on in this episode. Hopefully it was a little less confusing than when we jump back and forth between the different scenes. So we have the godly love triangle, we have the Lakeside Love and Laura's little quest, and then we have all these godly glitches. All right. Last thing we're going to do, we're going to talk about what we might see tonight in episode 7, which is called Fire and Ice. So essentially in episode 7, I don't know exactly what storylines we're going to see, but I would expect the Lakeside story to keep moving because, of course, we always want to see what Shadow's up to. And will we find out more about why Derek is stealing women's underthings? I don't know. Will we see more Shadow and Marguerite? Probably. Will we see what's happened to Allison? Well, we haven't so far, so I don't know when or if that's going to appear. I feel like it's not going to be yet, based on my understanding of storylines, but, at some point we're going to have to know what's going on. So I do think that we're going to see more of Shadow and Marguerite and some of the Lakeside stuff. Maybe we'll see more of the search for Allison. Maybe we'll see Chad. Maybe we'll see Hinzelman. I would like to see a little more of Chad and Hinzelman and the other Lakeside folks and how they interact with everybody. So maybe we'll see that. And I do assume that we're going to see more of whatever Mr. Wednesday is cooking up. Obviously, Demeter is now out of his reach. So what's he going to turn his attention to next? That will be interesting to see. And then the third thread, or however many other threads we see, I'm not sure. We've got a Laura storyline going on. She's got her own journey she's going on with Salim at the moment to try to find Mr. Wednesday, but also to deal with her own stuff. She's got a lot in her backstory that she's trying to deal with currently at the moment with this quest, but who knows what's going to happen next with her. I would hope we see more about Technical Boy and the shard or whatever that artifact is, or is that the artifact and what's going on with him? And is he having emotions? Who would have thought that Technical Boy would turn out to be the Wooby of American Gods? I mean, and if you're not super familiar with that term because we're running out of time, check out Wooby on TV Tropes because he really is. He's the Wooby, and I just want to give him a hug. But is he having emotions? What is going on with him? What is the artifact? I want to know. And then we haven't seen Bilquis in a while, and she is the new and refreshed, Bilquis, and so maybe we'll see what's going on with Bilquis. So I'm looking forward to tonight. I'm really glad that, you are watching this and joining us. Don't forget to like and subscribe and to join the live tweet at 8 tonight. AG Chat WEMMNSU is the hashtag, or you can just follow me on @TheEmilyESSE and you will see me tweeting. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you at 8 on the Twitters. Bye.